The faint light of dawn seeped through the thin curtains of Sarah's small apartment, a single mother living in a worn-out complex on the outskirts of Chicago. The city's waking hum blended with the sound of cars speeding by on the nearby highway and the occasional chirping of sparrows in the trees outside. Inside, the air carried the faint scent of freshly brewed coffee, mingling with the warmth of a simple, homely life. The apartment was tiny, almost cramped, with walls cracked by time and furniture worn but impeccably clean. Every object spoke of care, necessity, and a life built not on luxury, but on effort and love. Sarah stirred awake on the sagging sofa that doubled as her bed, her body aching from a long night shift at the textile factory. Exhaustion weighed on her limbs, but she pushed it aside as she always did. She had no time for fatigue. Her daughter, Emma, needed her. The thought of her 6-year-old girl was enough to shake off the heaviness of sleep. Sarah rubbed her eyes, allowing herself a fleeting moment of stillness before the day began. A soft shuffle broke the silence, followed by the tiny patter of bare feet on the old wooden floor. "Mommy," Emma's joyful voice chimed. Sarah turned just in time to catch her daughter as she sprinted forward and launched herself into her mother's arms. The little girl, barely 6, clung tightly, her warm face pressed against Sarah's chest. Sarah felt her heart swell as she kissed the soft curls on Emma's head. "Good morning, sweetheart," Sarah said, her voice still rough from sleep but full of tenderness. "Good morning, Mommy," Emma replied, her face bright with a toothy grin. "Are we going to the store today? I want to pick the biggest carrot." Sarah smiled, brushing a stray curl from Emma's forehead. "That's right, today's shopping day. Ready to help me pick out the best groceries?" Emma nodded eagerly, her eyes sparkling with excitement. For her, grocery shopping was a colorful adventure. For Sarah, it was a balancing act, a tightrope walk between what they needed and what they could afford. But she never let Emma see the strain behind her smile. They shared a simple breakfast, a bowl of oatmeal with a touch of sugar, the last from the nearly empty jar. Sarah made a mental note to add sugar to the shopping list, though she wasn't sure if it would fit their carefully planned budget. She washed the dishes quickly, grabbed her old, sturdy purse, its leather cracked from years of use, and checked the neatly folded shopping list and her wallet, which held every precious dollar she'd set aside for this trip. The sky was clear as they stepped outside, the early sun casting a golden hue over the cracked sidewalks. The neighborhood was old and worn, with peeling paint on the buildings and rusted fire escapes, but it buzzed with life. Children played on the weathered swings of a small playground, their laughter filling the air. Emma waved to a school friend before taking Sarah's hand. "Mommy, when I grow up, I want to be a doctor," Emma announced suddenly as they walked past a row of trees. "So I can help you when you're tired." Sarah slowed her steps, her heart tightening. She looked down at her daughter's bright, determined face and smiled. "You'll be the best doctor," she said with conviction. "And I'll always be your biggest fan." The Walmart loomed ahead, its bright red sign flickering slightly under the sunlight. Inside, the air was cool, blending with the soft melody of background music and the hum of conversations. Emma gripped the cart's handle excitedly as they entered the produce section. Sarah began her careful selection, checking prices, weighing options, and mentally calculating totals. Apples were too expensive today, but potatoes were on sale. Emma pointed to a large carrot, her eyes gleaming. "Can we get this one, Mommy?" Sarah hesitated. A single carrot, though small, was a choice to consider. But seeing Emma's eager expression, she couldn't deny her this simple joy. "Sure, sweetheart. Just one, okay?" Emma carefully placed the carrot in the cart, as if it were a treasure. Their cart slowly filled with basics: rice, pasta, beans, a loaf of bread, and a small pack of discounted chicken thighs. Sarah's eyes flicked between prices and her list, calculating every cent. She passed the snack and candy aisles without slowing. Those were luxuries they couldn't afford. But Emma's excitement remained undimmed, proudly selecting a bag of discounted potatoes and carrying it with both hands. As they passed the honey display, Sarah paused, her fingers grazing a glass jar. The price was higher than she remembered. She weighed it in her hand for a long moment before quietly placing it back. "Next time," she whispered to herself, her voice barely audible. The store buzzed with life around them, but Sarah felt the familiar weight of anxiety pressing on her chest. Every purchase was a calculation, every choice a compromise between today's needs and tomorrow's uncertainties. Suddenly, a sharp sound cut through the air, the clack of high heels on polished tiles. It stood out, not blending with the store's hum, carrying an air of oppression. Sarah sensed the shift in the atmosphere before she saw its source. A woman, dressed in ostentatious elegance, approached. Her silk dress hugged her figure, a designer handbag gleamed under the lights, and her red high heels clicked like a declaration of power. Her face, though beautiful, was marred by a cold, contemptuous smile. "Well," the woman said, her voice sweet but sharp as a blade. "Some people really will scrape the bargain bins to get by, won't they?" Sarah tightened her grip on the cart, her body tensing. Emma, sensing the change, looked up with wide, questioning eyes. Sarah took a deep breath, keeping her voice steady. "We're just shopping," she said, each word spoken with restraint. The woman, Victoria, as Sarah would soon learn, tilted her head, her smile growing colder. "Shopping?" she echoed, drawing out the word with syrupy condescension. Her gaze flicked to their cart, the lone carrot and modest staples. How precious! Teaching the little one to live off clearance items? A valuable life lesson. Emma clutched her mother's hand, her voice small but worried. "Mommy, why is she saying that?" Sarah knelt, placing her hands on Emma's shoulders, her eyes gentle but firm. "Sometimes, sweetheart, people say unkind things because they don't understand. But we don't let it bother us, do we?" Emma nodded, still confused. Victoria laughed, a cold, glass-like sound. "Oh, how touching," she said, dripping with mockery. "Teaching her to settle for less. Very practical." Sarah stood, her eyes locking onto Victoria's. "I'm teaching her about dignity," she said, her voice low but sharp. "Something you might not understand." The crowd around them began to notice. Curious glances turned their way, whispers spreading. Victoria didn't flinch. She stepped closer, her heels clicking like a threat. "Dignity?" she scoffed. "Dignity doesn't pay the bills, darling. Maybe if you worked harder, you wouldn't be scavenging for discounts." Sarah felt anger flare, but she held it back, unwilling to let Emma see her lose control. But before she could respond, a deep, authoritative voice cut through the air like a blade. "Enough." Both Sarah and Victoria turned. A tall man, dressed in a simple jacket but radiating undeniable authority, stood there. His eyes were sharp, unyielding. It was James Harper, owner of this Walmart chain, though no one in the crowd recognized him, and he preferred it that way. James Harper stood there, his gaze sharp as a razor, locked onto Victoria. His tall, broad-shouldered frame, though dressed simply in a navy jacket and jeans, exuded an authority that silenced the surrounding crowd. The once confident clack of Victoria's heels seemed to shrink under his presence. The air, charged with tension, grew still, as if the entire store held its breath. Sarah, gripping the cart tightly, felt her heart race. She didn't know who this man was, but something in his voice, deep, steady, commanding, made her feel safe, if only for a moment. Emma, clinging to her side, looked up at the man with wide, curious eyes, her small hand squeezing Sarah's as if to protect her. Victoria, however, wasn't easily cowed. She regained her composure, her contemptuous smile returning. "And who are you to interfere in other people's business?" she asked, her voice sweet but icy, like a velvet-wrapped blade. She tilted her head, the light catching her diamond necklace in a defiant sparkle. James didn't waver. He stepped forward, closing the distance, his eyes never leaving hers. "I'm the owner of this place," he said, his voice low but resonant, each word a hammer strike. "James Harper, chairman of Harper Retail Group, and I don't tolerate anyone insulting my customers in my store." A ripple of whispers ran through the crowd. Some recognized the name. Harper Retail Group owned not just this Walmart, but hundreds of stores across the country. Victoria, though trying to maintain her cool facade, couldn't hide a fleeting flicker of panic in her eyes. But she quickly masked it with a smirk. "So what?" she retorted, her voice still laced with arrogance. "I'm just stating the truth. People like her," she glanced at Sarah, "always scrape by on cheap goods. It's not my fault they can't rise above." Sarah felt anger surge in her chest, but she restrained herself, not wanting Emma to see her unravel. She knelt, whispering to her daughter, "Sweetie, stand behind me for a bit." Emma nodded, stepping back, but her eyes remained fixed on Victoria, filled with a child's indignation. James didn't let Victoria continue. "The truth," he repeated, his voice cold as ice. "The truth is you just insulted a woman doing everything she can to care for her daughter. The truth is you know nothing about her, yet you judged her. And the truth is," he paused, his gaze cutting through Victoria's arrogance, "I don't need customers like you in my store." His words hit like a blow. Victoria's lips tightened, but before she could respond, a sharp sound interrupted, a glass jar shattering on the floor. The crowd gasped, a few people yelping. Sarah pulled Emma close, her protective instincts flaring. A jar of tomato sauce had fallen, its red contents pooling like blood, shards glinting under the lights. The cashier, a young woman named Mia, apologized frantically. "I'm so sorry, I dropped the jar." But her eyes flicked to Victoria, and Sarah caught a strange glint in them, not fear, but unease. Mia grabbed a broom to clean up, but Sarah noticed her glancing at Victoria, as if waiting for something. Victoria seized the moment, laughing loudly. "See? Cheap comes with chaos." She turned to James, trying to pull him into her narrative. "Surely you don't want to defend people like this, do you? They're messing up your store." Sarah's face burned. She couldn't take it anymore. "Enough," she said, her voice low but sharp, stepping forward to face Victoria. "You don't know anything about me or my daughter. You don't know how hard we've worked. But I won't let you stand here and insult us just because you think you're better." The crowd fell silent, eyes on Sarah. Emma, behind her, whispered, "You're so strong, Mommy." Her small, proud voice fueled Sarah's resolve. She stood tall, her gaze unwavering, ready to defend her dignity and her daughter's. But before Victoria could retort, a crackle came from the store's intercom. A distorted, almost panicked voice echoed. "All customers, please remain calm. We're experiencing a minor technical issue. Please stay where you are." Sarah felt a chill run down her spine. She glanced at James, who frowned, his eyes shifting to the speakers. The crowd murmured, some confused, others moving toward the exits despite the announcement. James raised a hand, signaling for calm. "Everyone, stay put," he said, his voice commanding. He pulled out his phone, barking orders to someone on the other end. "Check the system now. Something's wrong." Sarah pulled Emma closer, unease growing. This wasn't just a technical issue. Her instincts screamed it. She glanced at Victoria, who now looked slightly rattled, her eyes scanning the crowd as if searching for someone. Sarah noticed a small tear in Victoria's designer bag, a detail that clashed with her perfect image. Mia, still cleaning the broken jar, kept stealing glances at Victoria, her hands trembling. Sarah's suspicion deepened. Something was off, not just the confrontation, but the entire situation. The small explosion, Mia's nervousness, Victoria's cryptic warning, it all felt connected. James turned to Sarah. "You and your daughter should head to the safe area near customer service," he said firmly. "I'll handle this." Sarah nodded, but her eyes stayed on Victoria. "Who is she?" she asked, her voice low so Emma wouldn't hear. "Why is she targeting me like this?" James shook his head, his expression darkening. "I don't know, but I'll find out. She's not just a random customer. Something's not right." Victoria, sensing the attention, turned sharply, her heels clicking as she headed for the exit. But before she could get far, another small explosion echoed from the back of the store, not loud enough to cause panic, but enough to startle everyone. The crowd screamed, some running. Sarah hugged Emma tightly, her heart pounding. "Mommy, what's happening?" Emma asked, her voice trembling. "It's okay, sweetheart," Sarah whispered, though she wasn't sure. She looked at James, who was yelling into his phone, ordering security to check the warehouse. His eyes met hers, and for a moment, she saw a rare flicker of worry in them. Victoria, caught in the chaos, turned back, her gaze locking onto Sarah. Her smirk was gone, replaced by a mix of anger and fear. "You think you can get away with this?" she hissed, her voice low and threatening. "You have no idea what you're involved in." Sarah felt ice in her veins. Victoria's words weren't just an insult, they were a warning. But before she could respond, James stepped between them. "You," he said, his voice like steel. "Get out now, or I'll have security drag you out." Victoria's laugh was shaky, almost manic. She turned and vanished into the crowd, leaving Sarah with a growing sense of dread. The intercom crackled again, announcing the situation was under control, but Sarah didn't believe it. Something was coming, and she and Emma were caught in the middle. Sarah held Emma's hand tightly, weaving through the crowd that was slowly calming after the intercom's announcement. The store's hum, beeping scanners, murmured conversations, squeaking carts, returned, but the air remained heavy, as if an invisible cloud lingered. Sarah felt the eyes of onlookers, some curious, some sympathetic, but she ignored them. Her only focus was keeping Emma safe and getting out before anything worse happened. James Harper led them toward the customer service area near the main exit. His stride was swift but composed, like someone used to commanding tense situations. Sarah sensed he wasn't just a wealthy businessman. Something in his movements, his vigilance, hinted at a more complex past. But she had no time to dwell on it. Victoria's parting words, "You have no idea what you're involved in," echoed in her mind, a riddle she couldn't yet solve. The customer service area was a small corner, surrounded by return counters and a modest desk. A burly security guard, his walkie-talkie crackling, stood nearby, scanning the crowd. Sarah guided Emma to a plastic chair, trying to stay calm. "Sit here for a bit, sweetie. Mommy needs to talk to the man," she said, forcing a smile despite her racing heart. Emma nodded, clutching her small stuffed bear from her backpack. "Mommy, will that lady come back?" she asked, her voice small but tinged with worry. Sarah knelt, touching Emma's cheek. "No, sweetheart. Mommy and the man will make sure everything's okay. Just stay here, all right?" Emma nodded, but her eyes betrayed unease. Sarah stood, turning to James, who was speaking with the guard. She caught fragments of their conversation, checked the cameras, and back warehouse. James glanced at her, and for a moment, she felt a strange connection, not pity, but respect. "Are you okay?" James asked, his voice low and sincere. Sarah nodded, though she wasn't certain. "Thank you for stepping in," she said. "But I don't understand. Why is she targeting me? I've never met her before." James frowned, his gaze drifting to the exit where Victoria had vanished. "I don't know," he said, "but she's not just a random customer. Something's off." Before Sarah could press further, hurried footsteps approached from behind the counter. Mia, the young cashier who dropped the sauce jar, appeared, her face pale, clutching a phone with trembling hands. She whispered to another employee, her eyes flicking nervously toward the exit. Sarah caught Mia's glance at the spot where Victoria had been, and unease deepened. "Mia," James called, his voice sharp but controlled. "What's going on?" Mia flinched, nearly dropping her phone. "And nothing, Mr. Harper," she stammered, but her shaking voice betrayed her. "I just thought I saw someone in the warehouse area. Maybe an employee, but—" James tilted his head, his gaze piercing. "Someone? Are you sure? Have you reported it to security?" Mia nodded quickly, but her eyes avoided his. Sarah felt a chill. Something was wrong, not just the confrontation with Victoria, but the entire situation. The small explosion, Mia's nervousness, Victoria's cryptic threat, it all felt connected, but Sarah couldn't piece it together. James signaled the guard. "Check the warehouse immediately," he said, "and ensure all exits are monitored. No one leaves until we know what's happening." Sarah's heart tightened. "Do you think it's dangerous?" she asked, keeping her voice low so Emma wouldn't hear. James met her gaze, his expression softening but serious. "I'm not sure," he said, "but I don't like risks. You and your daughter stay here. I'll keep you safe." Sarah nodded, but unease gnawed at her. She glanced at Emma, absorbed in her stuffed bear, and felt a fierce resolve. She'd do anything to protect her daughter, even if it meant facing whatever threat loomed. Meanwhile, on the other side of the store, Victoria moved swiftly through the aisles, her heels clicking urgently. Her arrogant smirk was gone, replaced by a tense expression. She pulled out her phone, dialing with near panic. "He saw me," she whispered when someone answered. "Harper. He's here, and he knows something's wrong." A cold, gravelly voice replied. "You've messed this up, Victoria. If Harper suspects, our plan falls apart. You know what happens if we fail." Victoria gripped the phone, her eyes scanning the crowd. "I didn't mean to," she said, her voice trembling. "But her, that woman, she distracted me. She's too much like her. She's irrelevant," the voice snapped. "You know our goal. Keep it together, or I'll make sure you pay." The call ended, leaving Victoria alone in the aisle, her breathing shallow. She glanced back toward the customer service area, where Sarah and Emma were. Something about Sarah, her resilience, her defiance, stirred an unwanted memory. Victoria shook her head, trying to dismiss it. It's not her, she muttered. It can't be. But deep in her mind, a dark secret was unraveling. Sarah, unaware, had stumbled into a dangerous game, one tied to Harper Retail Group, far beyond a petty insult in a store. Victoria wasn't just an arrogant customer. She was part of a larger web, and Sarah had become a threat. Back at customer service, Sarah kept Emma calm by telling an impromptu story about a bunny's forest adventure. But she couldn't shake the feeling that danger was closing in. She glanced at Mia, who was pretending to organize papers but kept looking toward the warehouse entrance. James returned, his face graver than before. We found a small device in the warehouse, he said, his voice low so only Sarah could hear. Not a bomb, but a signal jammer. Someone's trying to disrupt our security system. Sarah's heart stopped. Someone like Victoria? She asked. James nodded slowly. Possibly, but I need more information. Do you remember anything about her? Any detail that might help? Sarah shook her head. I've never met her before. But she looked at me like she knew me. And she said I don't know what I'm involved in. James' eyes darkened, scanning the crowd. She's still here, he said. I've had security block the exits. We'll find her and why she's targeting you. Before James could say more, a scream erupted from the main entrance. The crowd parted, and Victoria appeared, no longer the poised figure from before. Her hair was disheveled, her designer bag clutched tightly. Her, she shouted, pointing at Sarah. She's behind this. She's trying to sabotage your store, Harper. The crowd buzzed, eyes turning to Sarah. Emma gripped her mother's hand, her voice trembling. Mommy, she's lying, isn't she? Sarah's anger flared, but she stayed calm, her gaze locked on Victoria. I don't know who you are, she said, her voice clear and firm. But I won't let you accuse me in front of my daughter. James stepped between them. She's not involved, he said, his voice like steel. But I think you have a lot to explain, Victoria. Victoria laughed, a shaky, almost manic sound. You don't understand, she said. She's not who you think. She's dangerous. And if you don't believe me, you'll regret it soon. As Victoria turned to flee, a louder explosion rocked the warehouse, shaking the store. The crowd screamed, chaos erupting. Sarah hugged Emma tightly, her heart pounding as she realized she and her daughter were caught in something far bigger, far more dangerous than a supermarket confrontation. The explosion from the warehouse thundered like a storm, shaking the floor beneath Sarah's feet. The Walmart erupted in panic, screams and running footsteps mingling with the intercom's futile calls for calm. Sarah held Emma tightly, pulling her close, her heart pounding. She could feel her daughter's rapid breaths, Emma's small hands clutching her shirt like a lifeline in the chaos. James Harper acted instantly. He barked into his walkie-talkie, his voice sharp but controlled. Security, lock down all exits now. Check the warehouse. Find the source of the explosion. He turned to Sarah, his eyes both resolute and reassuring. You and your daughter, follow me. We need to get to a safe place now. Sarah nodded without hesitation. She scooped Emma up, despite her being too big to carry, and followed James through the chaotic crowd. Victoria, who had just accused Sarah with wild claims, had vanished into the throng, but Sarah could still feel her icy stare lurking. Victoria's words, "You have no idea what you're involved in," echoed in her mind, a curse she couldn't yet decipher. James led them through a narrow hallway behind the customer service counter to a small office marked staff only. The heavy metal door slammed shut, muffling the chaos outside. Inside, fluorescent lights illuminated a cluttered desk, security monitors, and a guard speaking rapidly into a walkie-talkie. James gestured for Sarah to set Emma down on a chair. You're safe here, he said. I'll figure out what's going on. Emma, though scared, looked up at her mother with shining eyes. Mommy, we'll be okay, right? She asked, her voice trembling but trying to be brave. Sarah forced a smile, though her heart was heavy. Of course, sweetheart. Mommy won't let anything happen to you. She stroked Emma's hair, hiding the fear choking her. James turned to the security monitors, scanning the feeds. The explosion wasn't large, he said, his voice low. It's a diversion device, not a bomb. Someone's trying to distract us, possibly to cover something else. He glanced at Sarah. And I think Victoria's involved. Sarah's heart sank. But why? I don't know her. Why is she targeting me? Before James could answer, a loud knock came at the door. Sarah flinched, pulling Emma closer. The guard, Mike, drew his sidearm and approached the door. "Who's there?" he called, his voice tense. "It's Mia," a shaky voice replied. "I need to talk to Mr. Harper. It's urgent." James nodded to Mike, who opened the door. Mia, the young cashier, stepped in, her face pale, hands trembling as she clutched her phone. She glanced at Sarah and Emma, then turned to James. "Mr. Harper," she whispered, "I know what's happening. But you have to promise to protect me." James' eyes narrowed. "Talk, Mia. No one's hurting you here." Mia took a deep breath, her voice shaking. "Victoria, she's not just a customer. She's working for a group trying to sabotage your company. They call it Project Collapse. They want to ruin Harper Retail Group by staging incidents, like the explosion, to discredit you." Sarah felt her blood run cold. "Sabotage? But why am I involved?" she asked, her voice hoarse. Mia hesitated, her eyes dropping to the floor. "I'm not sure," she said. "But Victoria, she mistook you for someone else. Someone who worked for Mr. Harper years ago. Someone who knew too much." James stiffened, his eyes darkening. "Who?" he demanded, his voice low but intense. Mia shook her head. "I don't know her name. But Victoria mentioned someone with a young daughter. Like you." She pointed at Sarah. "She thinks you're her, or she's afraid you might be." Sarah's mind reeled. She'd never worked for Harper Retail Group, never known anyone connected to it. But Victoria's hostility, her cryptic accusations, started to make sense. A terrible mistake had pulled Sarah and Emma into a dangerous web. James turned to Mike. "Find Victoria? Now. She doesn't leave this building." Mike nodded, rushing out with his walkie-talkie crackling. James faced Sarah, his expression softening. "I'm sorry you got caught in this," he said. "But I promise, I'll protect you and your daughter." Sarah nodded, but fear gnawed at her. "You know who she thinks I am, don't you?" she asked quietly. James hesitated, then nodded slowly. "Maybe," he said. "Years ago, an employee of mine, Laura, uncovered an internal plot in my company. She had a young daughter and left to protect her. I think Victoria's mistaking you for Laura." Sarah shook her head. "I'm not Laura. I'm just a mom trying to get by." James smiled, a sad smile. "I know, but you're not just any mom, Sarah. I saw how you faced Victoria, how you protected your daughter. You have a strength most people don't." Before Sarah could respond, the door burst open. Mike returned, dragging Victoria, who struggled in his grip. "Found her near the back exit," Mike said. "She was trying to run." Victoria, her arrogance gone, looked panicked. Her perfect hair was disheveled, her designer bag on the floor. "Let me go," she shouted. "You don't understand. I had no choice." James stepped forward, his eyes like steel. "Talk, Victoria. Who's behind this? Who's giving you orders?" Victoria laughed, a frantic, trembling sound. "You think you can stop them? They're bigger than you, Harper. They'll destroy your company, and if I don't comply, they'll kill me." Sarah felt Emma tremble in her arms. She knelt, whispering, "I'm here, sweetheart. Everything's okay." But she knew the truth. Things were far from okay, and they might not be unless she acted. "I don't know who Laura is," Sarah said, standing tall, her eyes locked on Victoria. "But I won't let you or anyone threaten my daughter. Tell us the truth, or I'll find it myself." Victoria stared at Sarah, and for a moment, fear in her eyes turned to reluctant admiration. "You really don't know, do you?" she said softly. "Fine. I'll talk. But not here. They're watching." James had Mike move Victoria to a corner, where she began to confess, her voice trembling. She revealed that Project Collapse was a plot funded by a rival company to ruin Harper Retail Group by staging public incidents, like the explosion, to erode customer trust. Victoria was hired to create chaos, but Sarah's presence had thrown her off, mistaking her for Laura, who nearly derailed the plan years ago. Sarah listened, her heart pounding. She wasn't Laura, but this mistake had put her and Emma in the crosshairs. Yet she felt a new strength rising, the strength of a mother who'd do anything for her child. Resolution and light. As Victoria finished her confession, James called the police, ensuring she'd be detained for questioning. The explosion was confirmed as a small diversion device, causing no major damage but enough chaos. Security quickly regained control, and the store returned to normal. James turned to Sarah, his eyes full of respect. "You faced all this with courage I rarely see," he said. "I have an offer. My company's expanding a community program, and we need someone like you. Someone who understands resilience and dignity. I want you to join, with a better salary and flexible hours so you can be with Emma. Sarah blinked, stunned. I don't know what to say, she said, her voice hoarse. Just say yes, James smiled. You deserve this chance. Sarah looked at Emma, who beamed. Mommy, he says you're strong, she said. I know you're the strongest. Sarah laughed, tears in her eyes. Thank you, Mr. Harper, she said. I'll take it. As they left the store, stepping into the golden afternoon sun, Sarah felt a weight lift from her shoulders. She hadn't just survived a dangerous day. She'd held on to her dignity and her daughters. Victoria, though she'd caused pain, now faced the consequences. And Sarah, with a new opportunity and unshakable resilience, knew she and Emma would keep moving forward, no matter the challenges. They walked hand in hand, the sunlight matching Emma's smile. Mommy, can we get honey next time? She asked, her voice full of hope. Sarah laughed, her heart full. Absolutely, sweetheart. Next time, we'll get the honey. And as they walked, Sarah knew that no matter what the world threw at them, she'd always teach Emma the most important lesson. Strength wasn't in money or power, but in kindness, dignity, and unbreakable love.